Morning, everybody. This is Doug Pinter on Daily Energy. We got Steve Minear, Stanley Steamer in-house. Found the new office.
Yep.
Took a while, right?
A little bit, yep.
How's the casual drive through downtown Peoria this morning?
It was good, Not that many people on the streets. Everybody was working, so, got to do what I wanted.
Yeah, traffic. There's really no traffic in Peoria. You can get anywhere in 15 minutes, but appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Before we came on air, you were talking about how a lot of people, they're starting to get busted pipes, and you have water mitigation to deal with and possible mold setting in some places, so you got to go in.
People not turning off their outside water spigots, and those pipes are starting to freeze, and it kind of sneaks up on you, and before you know it, you have a basement full of water. So
'tis the season, people. We're going to cover that and a lot more with good friend Steve from Stanley Steamer. But Tiger Woods, y'all. What's your thoughts? 3 under.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. See if his back can hold up.
Hero World Challenge. You have Tommy Fleetwood as your leader, sitting at -6. Ricky Fowler, Matt Kuchar sitting at -5. Rose, Johnson, and Spieth at 4. And then you got Tiger Woods sitting at -3. They say the galleries are 8, 9 deep, just with Tiger being back in the field. I think with Johnson and Spieth and those guys, I want to go see those guys, but I think a lot of people are paying to go see Tiger back on the course because don't know if this will be his last tournament. Anything could go wrong, and I think one more injury for Tiger,
he'll be done.
It will be devastating to his career. What's your take on Tiger? You think he wins a tournament this upcoming season, or?
I don't know. I think it'd be a huge comeback if he could, win a tournament or even a major for that matter. I think he'd just be happy of being in contention and being able to play an actual season without being injured. So
it's kind of weird. I think I do it daily. I take things for granted, like my health. But as soon as your health is taken away, there's nothing you want more than your health. With Tiger Woods, he was on top of the world. He kind of created his own demise, in my opinion. But he was great for the game of golf 15, 20 years ago when he came on the scene, just annihilating and lapping the field. So I think, people are anxious to get out and see him play. And sitting at 3 under, his press conference, where I was going with that is he seemed much more open. He wanted more questions from the media, where before he's looking at his watch. He's probably getting a reservation somewhere. I don't know. Chili's. And, he seemed annoyed that the press was there asking him questions. So being away from it, maybe he's found a new, calmness or whatever the case may be.
Connected back to the game a little bit more.
Yeah, and it looked like I saw Dustin Johnson and Kuchar in that interacting with Tiger on SportsCenter this morning. It seemed like a lot of the guys are happy to see Tiger back in the field. I think a lot of the guys want Tiger to perform where he used to perform. I'm not sure that'll happen.
That's a high bar to get back to.
So that way they can judge themselves against Tiger. I think Dustin Johnson, #1 golfer in the world, he'll be the guy to catch this year. Tiger will be there. He'll sell a lot of tickets. He's going to make a lot of money this year, but in 2018. But I don't think he brings home a victory.
Like I said, I think he'd just be happy to have some top 10 finishes and
sitting in 8th. We'll see what
we'll
see what he does today. I know ratings were up. That was the most watched Thursday round golf on the Golf Channel since the beginning of the season. So that tells you a little bit about the power of Tiger Woods and what he can do for the PGA Tour.
Right.
We're going to also talk a little bit. We're going to touch on our fantasy football teams, cover the NFL, who's hot, who's not, who to pay attention to. Some big games coming up this weekend, lots of miles being traveled by teams. So Steve and I are going to give you our picks a little bit later on in the show. Definitely stay tuned. I know I've said this before. I got some hot picks, but I have some hot picks. I think I'm on to something that no one else in this world is on to. And we're going to cover that later. It ought to be lackluster.
Interesting.
Yeah, so Steve with Stanley Steamer coming in. I know good friend Mark Hoagland. He's busy as always. And we were talking a little bit, last time you were on the show, we talked about turning the hoses off. I actually, that weekend, I went out, unscrewed my hoses, and got them into the basement, just making sure I don't need any issues.
You didn't want to have an ice rink out
in
the yard?
No, I've had enough issues with this new home with floods, and you guys have been in my home a lot, taking good care of me. What are you finding, though? We talked about bursting pipes because they're freezing, the water stacking up in the basement. What do you guys run into?
I mean, we're running into a lot of that, and we're finding that not even with frozen pipes, that a lot of people are having a lot of busted pipes, and that might just be overall age of the pipes, or it could be not checking on them and making sure that they're maintained.
Wouldn't you say checking on them and being maintained, is that just simply walking down through your basement, making sure there's nothing leaking, or?
Yeah, I mean, without going into too much depth on some people's stuff, we've had one where guy said that it was a slow leak. Him and his buddy thought that they could fix it.
Famous last
and
words.
To their credit, it did look like it was fixed, but it ended up being a slow leak over a period of time. And he was standing in front of his kitchen sink and noticed that the ground was wet, and looked underneath the sink, and there was considerable amount of damage. And it was just something as simple as the shutoff valve was leaking slowly over a period of time and progressively got worse. So, a lot of people look underneath there and they're like, oh, it's just a small drip, I'll clean it up here and there. Well, that small drip becomes into a bigger drip, and it turns into a steady stream, and then you're in a world of hurt.
Usually that drip doesn't go away.
Right, exactly. Right? It's not going to fix itself.
Right. And when you're talking, so if I hear you right, maybe some preventative measures is check under your kitchen sink, pull everything out, make sure there's no water standing there.
Right.
Check the wash machine, things of that nature, the wash basin and the mud room, things of that nature.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, your exposed pipes, I mean, there's still some things you can't prevent and do anything to save, on a pipe that's inside of a wall or something like that. But the things that you can check, it's probably a good idea to check them every once in a while.
I got you. Steve Minier with Stanley Steamer in-house. So let's say, someone forgot to undo their hose outside, left that spigot on, it's frozen. What usually happens? The pipe will freeze up, expand,
and it'll break, the piping that it's in, whether that's the copper piping or the PVC, whatever, you have, and it'll expand and it'll freeze and it'll break. Typically, you don't notice that until the temperatures warm back up and that pipe then thaws. And then once that blockage is out of the way, then, heaven forbid if you're out of town or something of that nature, then you realize
whatever was
you've
in
got
that
a lot
pipe
of issues at that point. So
falling out and ruining the home.
Yep. Well, or at least the basement portion of it.
What do you find? Do you guys run into many people that fail to take care of their irrigation system and those pipes freeze up? Do you run into that much?
We don't run into that a whole lot. I mean, we'll end up with some sewage backups, but typically, that happens in the springtime when you end up with a bunch of rain and the sewer systems are having a hard time keeping up, or there was a blockage that they didn't know about, and then it causes that backup. Or in the springtime, everybody has a sump pump, and a sump pump goes out every once in a while, and then at that point, that sump pump causes that backup because there's nothing to pump the water out of the basement.
Yeah.
So typically this time of year is where we notice a lot of broken pipes and freezing pipes, or people that have rental properties with nobody in it.
Yeah.
And, then at that point, there's nobody there to check on the system and make sure that everything stays okay.
So, I always used to laugh at my dad when he was getting ready to go on vacation, that he had turned the water off and everything. I'm like, geez, Dad, what are you doing? And then I came home from a vacation one time, and our guest bathroom was completely flooded. Yep. So now I turn my water off when I go
do
on
it every
vacation.
single time.
Yeah.
Even if it's as simple as a weekend away, I'll turn off that water just to make sure that I don't come home to a waterfall somewhere in my house. So
yeah, problem. Yeah, our good buddy Steve Minier with Stanley Steamer in-house. Steve, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk a little football. I know Dunlap Eagles gave it a heck of a run. They made it over to state to finish in second place. Boys, keep your heads up, right? I mean, they had a
really
heck of a season.
Yeah.
Heck of a season. Quite a few people that will be returning next year onto that Dunlap Eagles team, and I know you're part of the Dunlap Eagles JFL program.
Yep.
That JFL program's growing and growing, and there's a ton of kids, and I think the program is just beginning.
It's definitely headed in a really good direction, and the entire staff over there, both my boys play for them, and it's not so much just about the football, but it's about, turning the boys into men and teaching them good responsibilities and
good group
good
of
habits.
kids.
So
good group of kids. Mark and I coached Dunlap baseball, which Mark put it on your calendar. We're coaching again this upcoming year. You can take as many vacations as you want. I got your back. But the kids, that's what I enjoy the most is you get to see where they start and where they finish, and you get to watch them grow in between. It's a
progression.
It's fun. It's fun. You guys spend quite a few months with these kids, developing them into young men, and you guys are influential on them. And it's nice to see the young guys walking around, hey, coach, how are you? Shaking hands, thank you. The mannerisms are all there. So good job to the Dunlap High School football team, taking home second place in state. Congratulations, guys, and good luck next year. Let's talk a little bit about the NFL. Did you watch that Washington-Dallas debacle last night?
No, I didn't watch that last night.
Good for you. It was painful to watch. Morris, when we're talking fantasy points, this morning, Morris put up 18.7 fantasy points for a lot of people out there. Grant had 13.6, and then Dez ended up with 12.1. Dez made a heck of a catch in the end zone last night. Looked like his old self.
I had Witten, and he only got me like 8 points last night, so it was kind of a mediocre game for me.
Yeah, I thought Witten would have a little bit better game. I think the secondary for Washington was a little weak. I thought he would run down the hash marks and catch a few more, but not the case. Last night, Dallas 38, Washington 14. Kirk Cousins did not look awesome by any means, but he's just kind of that steady middle-of-the-road quarterback. If we're talking fantasy points, he's going to get you your 15 to 20 every single week. He's reliable. He's not going to lay an egg on you. But then again, he's not going to pull Tom Brady and throw for 5 touchdowns in a game.
He's not going to get you your 40 points during the...
Yeah. So Dallas keeps themselves in playoff contention, winning 38-14 over Washington.
Washington's basically done now.
So. Yeah, I think Washington, that was a defining moment last night, and they didn't rise to the occasion. So the Patriots are leading the East in the AFC, sitting at 9-2. You know, the Pats started off losing 2, lost their first game at home. I was in the boat where, okay, this team, what's going on? Gronk's back in, LeGarrette Blount, Brady's dishing the ball. I think Patriots look really balanced. Have you watched much of them?
I watched a little bit. I know in the beginning of the season their defense was struggling and was giving up a ton of yards per carry, and they've kind of slowed that down a little bit. If I remember correctly, their defense still isn't rated that great, but, I mean, you can never count Brady and Belichick out. They're just the mentality of the game is phenomenal. When
you got Brady behind the center, I think you have to put up at least 28 points to beat New England. Not a lot of teams in the NFL can do that. And I agree. I think New England's defense is ranked right around 20th in the league out of 32 teams. So, yeah, nothing stellar, but just good enough to allow Brady and the crew
just to keep them in,
get the job done. Over in the West in the AFC, you have Kansas City and the Chargers both sitting. Kansas City sitting at 6-5. They look terrible.
I think Chargers end up pulling that division out. They're just.
I agree.
They're a good team. They've just left games out on the field too many times.
You know, starting the season, I think they went 3 games in a row where they had the fourth quarter lead and blew it. And they've lost all of the close games, like 3 points and under. They've yet to win one of those games. Chargers, though, coming down the last few games, they do have a cakewalk schedule. A lot of people will be traveling to the West Coast to play them. I think that favors them. So, yeah, I'm in agreement. I think Rivers is throwing the ball really well. Rivers was 5th last week on the hot list for fantasy points, not just last week, but for the projected weeks coming up as well.
Right.
So, yeah, we're in agreement there then. The Chargers will bring home the West. In the North, you have Pittsburgh 9-2. Pittsburgh, did they lose to the Bears when they played in Chicago? I believe they did. I could be wrong. But Pittsburgh's sitting at 9-2. You got Roethlisberger. You got Antoine Brown. You have, who's the running back, the stud? You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I got you. I can't
there's
come up with his
people out
name.
there shaking their head like these guys are on the radio. You got to be kidding me. But I do think Pittsburgh will finish the season rather solid, and I think they'll bring home that North Division. No one's even near them.
No, Pittsburgh right now, they're on fire, and they're definitely, their game's getting better, and they've progressively gotten better as the season's gone on.
A lot of question as to Roethlisberger and the longevity of his career in Pittsburgh. What's your thoughts on Roethlisberger?
I don't know. Roethlisberger, he's a different style quarterback. I mean, he takes a lot of hits, and he plays when he's injured, and it makes you wonder how long of a career he can have with that style of game that he's playing.
I thought you were explaining how he rides his motorcycle.
Well, that too.
I followed you there. Over in the South, it's just a snooze fest, pillow fight. Titans and Jags, they're both 7-4. I have no clue how. I mean, Mariota, I have him in a fantasy league. He puts up 16 points every single week for me, but I just...
It's hard to play.
How do you watch these teams? I can't watch Titans and Jags. Thank goodness they're not on TV much. I really don't know that much about them to speculate. I'll just take Titans since I got Mariota. What's your thoughts?
I've got Mariota and I got Decker, so I think I'll have to take the Titans as well.
All right. Selfishly, we're going to take the Titans there in the AFC. So the rundown of the NFC, the Eagles, 10-1. I mean, they're just men amongst boys.
Yeah, they're on fire. Definitely the surprise of the season. I think if you go back to the beginning of the season, I don't think there would have been many people that would have picked them to do as well as they've done.
I think it's balanced. Defense is phenomenal.
Yep.
I mean, they just played, what was it, Sunday night or whatever, Monday night, and I mean, they just held their own on the defensive side of the ball. And when you talk about the offense, McCown is putting up these passes on a dime, and he's playing flawlessly, I think.
Yeah, he's just it's definitely impressive with the way that their team is on both sides of the ball is operating and moving the ball downfield, and even against good defenses, they're making them look,
They're putting up a ton of points,
Yep.
averaging over 29 points on the season per game. Over in the West, we have the Rams in Seattle. I like the Rams.
I'm going to go with the Rams as well.
Gurley, he's putting up a ton of points. Goff, the quarterback, he's got a heck of an arm.
And I've got Goff, though, as well in one of my
balanced
leagues,
run
so
game.
I'll go ahead and take that one as well.
And you know what? I think this week's matchup favors the Rams as well. Seattle 7-4. I don't want to play them at home. However, if they're a team that's on the road in the playoff, I'm not afraid of them.
Right.
Let's get into the North. The Vikings have quietly moved into 9-2. They got rid of Peterson, and everyone was, speculating what they were doing. They're in their new stadium. Quarterback seems to be doing pretty good. What's your thoughts on the Vikings?
Once again, I mean, they're playing really balanced ball. Their defense is keeping them in games, and they're executing on the offensive side. I mean, it's not like they're putting up huge amounts of points, but they're keeping the games close and then, finishing out.
I think they do a good job when they get up by 2 scores or more. They start that ground and pound, run the clock down, and the offense really slows down that second half, but it really keeps the opponent's defense on the field, which allows them to move that ball down the field. So the Vikings sitting 9-2. I'm not sure our Bears will catch them. Over in the South, we have Saints and Carolina sitting at 8-3, with Atlanta sitting at 7-4. Atlanta, let's start there. Start off a little slow. They started in their new stadium.
Yep.
They were odds on. I mean, you could take them at home, and the Dirty Birds would always cover. They moved into a new stadium. They lost a home game or two at the beginning of the season. Now they seem to be hitting their stride. Matt Ryan, Julio Jones had a heck of a game this past weekend.
Well, and even Freeman, I mean, he's the
beast.
The kind of toss-up, and I know he's been battling injuries, but even, being on that probable, portion of the injuries, he's still coming out and putting up big points every week.
Yeah.
So,
Atlanta's defense, mediocre at best. I'm not sure it'll be enough to get them into the playoffs. When we talk about the Saints, here's a team who's really flipped the switch on the defensive side of the ball. They started 0-2, went on an 8-game run. They just lost, but they're putting up a ton of points. I think Drew Brees, how old is this guy, 84? He's still throwing bombs down the field.
I don't think anybody's surprised by the Saints putting up big numbers and big points, because that's what they've done with Breeze there. It's the defense that surprises everybody, and that's what's been surprising to me is how much their defense has held up.
And they haven't cleaned house on defense. It's a lot of the same players. It seems like they're
niching together finally.
The leadership's calling the right defensive schemes to confuse. Their blitz package is hands down one of the better ones in the league. How they will bring safety off the ends and get to the quarterback and overcrowd the line so they get that free man blitz and put a lot of pressure on a quarterback to get rid of that ball in under 1.5 seconds. So the Saints, Carolina now, You know, I thought halfway through the season I was writing Carolina off. They were a couple games above 500, and now it seems like Cam Newton might be healthier. I think at the beginning of the season he was not 100%, where now he seems to be getting out of the pocket, making some plays on his feet.
See, I don't know if it's necessarily him being healthier. I just, you know, there was a lot of talk in the beginning of the season of trying to keep him contained and keep him inside the pocket and make Cam Newton not Cam Newton. And then he's kind of broke away from that and went back to the old of Cam Newton, and they've progressively started winning more football games by Cam being Cam.
It'll be interesting to see how the Saints hold up and if Carolina can stay on that roll, and they got Atlanta right on their heels, so ought to be a tight race. If we're talking the Final Four in the playoffs, if I had to pick it today, I think over in the AFC it'd be New England and Pittsburgh playing to get into the Super Bowl, and I think over in the NFC, I would take the Eagles and the Rams playing to get into the Super Bowl. The reason I picked the Rams is they put up a ton of points against really, really good defenses. So I would be interested to see Philly and the Rams get on the same field and see what wins. Is it defense or offense? A lot of people always say defense will win those games. So that's my prediction there. I do think the Eagles, though, top to bottom, they have to be the odds-on favorite for the Super Bowl champs, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean,
who would beat them?
Well, once again, it's hard to count out Brady. You know, if Brady gets to that point, and if they have home field advantage all the way through, then you're going to New England, and you've got to beat New England in New England, and then you take them to the Super Bowl. And
what, they were only down 20-some in the Super Bowl last year and came on back. Brady let them on that late charge.
That's why I said, how do you count them out?
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things until somebody does beat them and, you know, hands them to them.
A loss, yeah.
Yeah, you know, then you might be able to look at something like that, but until that happens, it's Brady. So
it's only a matter of time, everyone. Probably 5-6 weeks, we're going to be hearing nothing but what Tom Brady's going to decide on New England. Yep. Is he going to keep on playing? What's he going to do? Our good friend Steve Minear with Stanley Steamer in house this morning. We were talking a little bit about those busted pipes. Covered a little bit of NFL, fantasy football. We're going to come back and make some predictions for the weekend. But let's go back and visit. So we were talking earlier, people that you guys, your business, phones are really ringing, pipes are bursting, things of that nature. So a couple tips. Turn that water off.
Yep, turn the water off. Just do an overall walkthrough, make sure that you don't have any leaky pipes. And if you do go out of town, turn off your water before you leave. And turn off your outside water spigots if you haven't already done so. Obviously, the temperatures are dropping big time, and they're calling for a pretty hard winter.
Perfect.
You know, so
love Central Illinois.
I think we're due for one. We haven't had one in a few years.
Yeah.
2015, we had the big freeze, you know, the big ice storm. But besides that, really haven't had a hard winter in quite a few years. So definitely say that we're due for one. So make sure you turn off the water, you know, for the outside water spigots, just in general. If you're going out of town, turn off the actual water to the entire house, run it, make sure you flush out the system.
Maybe even have a neighbor or friend just stop by once or twice while you're out. Just do a quick walkthrough, make sure everything's good to go.
Yep.
Check under those sinks, make sure there's no leaky pipes. Again, those leaks will not fix themselves.
Right.
It's just a headache waiting to happen. Hey, I want to give you guys a shout out.
Okay.
Saw you in a meeting on Wednesday, right?
Yep.
And I was telling you how I had my hand down the trash disposal. Being a golfer, that's probably not the wisest thing.
Right.
And all I could think about is that thing firing up and me coming out with no digits. You guys came out, fixed it up right away. You gave me the number of the guy that helps you guys in.
Yep.
Came out, fixed it up right away. Trash disposal's working. The wife's been in Ireland all week, so I bribed the kids. We're going to tell her I fixed that.
There you go.
And we're going to run with it that way. So, Steve. As long as
she doesn't watch this, she'll be fine.
She's on a flight right now back. So, Steve with Stanley Steamer, we were talking a little bit about, frozen pipes. It's that time of the season, people, whether you want to realize it or not. Today's December 1st. Pipes are freezing and busting. Don't have it happen at your house, especially with the holidays right around the corner. Last time you were in, we were talking a little bit about doing some holiday cleaning. I see your trucks all over the place. You guys run around to home still,
Yep.
getting the tile cleaned up and the floors and the upholstery.
Hardwood, carpet, tile, furniture, concrete even. I mean, if you need it cleaned, for the most part, we can do it for you. You know, and if you have pet issues, we do have a deodorizer. I mean, there's lots of different services, but we can do it all. Or even if you have an older tile, we can do a color seal on it and change that entire appearance and give you that unified look all the way across it for you.
You can take that old-looking shower and make it look brand new.
I don't know about brand new, but we can definitely make it look better than what it does now.
Yeah, that stain, you know, the caulk and that in there sometimes wears out. So.
Yep.
And it's not like you guys are charging an arm and a leg for these services. It's very affordable. You come in, you take good care of my house every time you guys are in it. You have your booties on to make sure, you know, no dirt's coming in and that.
Right.
And you guys are real clean, real efficient with your time. So if you're freaking out, you got a lot of cleaning to do around the house, just hop online, StanleySteamer.com. Call their office. What's the number down there?
309-692-1990.
1990. Give them
Yep.
a ring if you need any last-minute holiday cleaning before the holidays. Speaking of the holidays, are you pretty well set for Christmas?
No. I got 4 kids. There's never such a thing as being ready for Christmas before Christmas. So.
Well, I don't know. My kids must have thought Santa hit the lotto this past year because all it is like phones. They're at this age where it's expensive.
Phones, Xbox Ones, you know, clothes. Yeah.
Xbox One, I've heard a lot of good things. World War II, that Call of Duty game.
Yep.
That's all my son wants right now.
That's what my boys play too, and yeah, they're all about it. So
Yeah.
it's definitely not cheap, and it's that time of year.
Christmas coming up right around the corner. Maybe get your loved one a gift certificate. Have Stanley Steamer come out and take care of the tile in the shower, or clean up the carpets.
Yep.
I don't think
Guys,
that
earn
would.
some brownie points with your wives.
I was going to say, if I have you guys come out, that's going to make my wife happy.
Exactly.
It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. We need to talk before you take off here. Hey, let's talk about a couple of the games this weekend that I definitely want everyone to pay attention to. San Francisco coming to the Bears. Bears -3. It's a noon kick. That's like 9 or 10 o'clock out on the West Coast. Take the Bears -3, everybody. San Francisco traveling into Chicago. Different climate change, different time zone. I think the Bears are actually going to win this game, and they're going to win it in a fashion where it just might get us Bears fans a little bit anxious for next year, I think.
Give you something to smile about a little bit.
Trubisky's going to have a huge game. Denver traveling to Miami. Denver's -1.5. Everybody, Miami's where it's at. It's going to be hot. Denver's had some, you know.
That one's rough for me. Born and raised in Colorado, so I'm a huge Denver fan. But the quarterback situation in Denver, and you can definitely see in the disposition of the team that they're definitely not in the best of places. So unfortunately, I'd probably take Miami as well.
I would agree. Miami all day getting +1.5. Then you have Kansas City, who's hot and cold, going out to New York. Kansas City -3. I'm actually thinking the Jets on this game again, traveling halfway across the U.S. Got a noon kick. Jets are kind of playing decent ball right now. We'll see what happens.
I mean, that'll be an interesting game. You know, Kansas City over the last couple of years has had issues on the second half of the season. So I would almost go with the Jets as well.
All right, we got 3 more games to cover. Cleveland out in L.A. L.A. -13.5. Cleveland traveling all the way across country. L.A. 13.5. They're going to win by 300.5. The Giants traveling out to Oakland. Oakland -9. I like Oakland. I love when these teams are traveling coast to coast.
Yep.
The traveling team, I really, no matter how good they are, I would take Oakland -9. Then we have Philly. Here's the pick. Philly traveling out to Seattle. Philly -6. I would take Seattle. I don't think Seattle wins this game, but I do think it comes down to a last-second field goal. And I think it's one of those games that will test Philadelphia, and they will use that to grow going into the playoffs. Your thoughts? We got about 15 seconds.
I mean, obviously you got the 12th man there in Seattle, but Philly just, I'm going to go with Philly. I'll take Philly on that.
He's taking Philly, everyone.
I'll take Philly.
Only time will tell. On the NFL, on Daily Energy, got my
go.
good buddy Steve Minear with Stanley Steamer. We covered a little bit about maybe doing some house cleaning prior to the holidays, and busted pipes, all of our NFL picks, and Tiger Woods. Have a great day, everybody.
PeoriaLife.com